On this episode of Inside Boxing Live, we have two in-person guests here in the studio. First, Skye Nicolson, the young up-and-coming star from Australia, 2-0. She fights Saturday night on the Katie Taylor Amanda Serrano card, is here in studio. And then we talk to Chris Algieri, all things Taylor-Serrano, all things Valdez Stevenson. We get to some of the other topics going on in the world of boxing. It's an all brand new episode, Inside Boxing Live. Here we go. What is up, everybody? Welcome in to another edition of Inside Boxing Live. I am your host, Dan Canobio. Today is Thursday, April 28th, and we have a jam-packed show for you today. In studio, Skye Nicholson is here, also Chris Algieri, as we gear up for a huge weekend in the sport of boxing, whether you're going to be watching Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, Madison Square Garden on the Zone, whether you're going to be watching over on ESPN, Shakur Stevenson versus Oscar Valdez, and good thing for fight fans, you will be able to watch them not simultaneously. You will be able to watch one fight. The Taylor-Serrano fight is going to end at around 11 o'clock, and then you should get the main event over on ESPN. So a jam-packed weekend of fights. Let's just get right into it. First up, we're going to talk to Skye Nicholson, and after that, we'll talk to Chris Algieri. It's going to be an awesome weekend of fights. So much to get to, but here she is, Skye Nicholson. All right, we have our first in-person guest here at John Boy Media Inside Boxing Live, none other than Skye Nicholson. Skye, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I didn't know I was your first guest. How exciting.
First in studio. I don't want to, yeah.
That's cool.
It's a big thing. You just walked into the office. You got a big ovation. How did that feel?
It was nice. And it's a cool studio.
I have to feel it might be even bigger on Saturday when you fight at MSG, right?
Yeah, I actually thought that when the crowd cheered for me out there. I was like, wow, MSG's got some competition just here.
So, first time in New York City?
I was actually here when I was 14.
Okay. Was that like a school trip?
Family, little vacation. But first time as an adult, so I feel like this is the first time I've really been here.
And what were the initial impressions? What do you think of New York City? It's different than it was maybe just 5 years ago. What was your initial, what did you think of it right away?
There's a buzz in the atmosphere here. We're staying literally across the road from MSG. You can see it from my window, which is really cool. But yeah, as fight week's kind of gone on and the fight night's getting closer, the buzz is increasing. It's exciting just walking around New York City. It is
different type of vibe, right? You
Yeah.
fought in San Diego, you fought in Leeds, you fought all over the world. But something about New York, this type of card, New York City, springtime, it's got to feel like a little extra pep in your step.
Oh, 100%. It's unreal. I've had so many pinch me moments already this week, and I'm sure there's many more to come, but no, I'm soaking up the whole experience and just taking it all in my stride.
Now, it's crazy. You've been very busy to start your career. I know a lot of prospects and a lot of fighters, when they start off their career, they like to fight maybe 4, 5, 6 times a year. Mm-hmm. You're going on 3 fights now in 18 weeks, which is just absurd. You made your debut in San Diego on a Roman Gonzalez, JC Martinez card. Your second fight was in Leeds. What an atmosphere for that, for Josh Warrington and Kiko Martinez. And now here, Madison Square Garden, biggest women's fight ever, Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. That's one hell of a way to start a career.
I know. It's kind of hard to be fighting on such huge cards so early because, where do you go from here? That's what people keep asking me, where do you go from here? But I guess it's setting me up for, one day headlining a big card and being the star of the show.
Yeah, you're pretty well traveled, too. Grew up in Australia. Now you live in London.
Yeah.
And now you're fighting all over the world. That's a big part of being a boxer today. It's more than just you fight in where you're from. It's a global sport.
Yeah, definitely. Boxing has its own language, and it can be appreciated all over the world. You don't have to speak the language. You just boxing has its own language, and probably my biggest decision to decide when I was signing professional to go with Matchroom was their plan for me to become a global sensation, to become a global star, and they've definitely lived up to their promises, and they're putting me on the big cards, and they're fighting me around the world, and yeah, I'm very, very, very lucky.
Global star, you say, just like your singing ability. You were singing, Skye was singing before we went on the air. Do you want to bless us right now or no? I'm putting you on the spot right here. It was actually pretty good. It wasn't that bad.
Thank you.
I
don't know if Justin Bieber would appreciate.
Maybe he'll show up on Saturday. I heard there are going to be a lot of stars out on Saturday night. I heard some WWE superstars will be in attendance. There's going to be so many women legends of the game. Christy Martin is going to be there. Obviously, a lot of the fighters of today. What does it feel like to be part of this movement, and what can you say about all the women that have come before you?
Oh, it's amazing. History is taking place on Saturday night, and to be a part of that night is humbling. I'm very grateful, and I hope that I can be a good role model to the next generation of young women, and be a trailblazer like Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano have been for my generation.
Yeah, I would say so too. They've been at it for a while now. They deserve this moment. I was just at the workout, and I just saw the smile on Amanda Serrano's face. I'd gotten to know her over the years, living in New York. She's a New York fighter, and I wouldn't say she struggled, but she was not headlining cards. She was fighting on big cards, but not anything like she has over the last 3 or 4 years. And I think that's a testament to where women's boxing is right now, where it's not just, all right, you're not going to be the first fight of the night, or you're not going to be the last to walk out bout. You're going to either be a co-main event or you're going to be a main event like it is now. I would say that the sport over the last 2 or 3 years has made leaps and bounds, right?
Oh, 100%. Women's boxing is on the rise, and it's absolutely buzzing right now. And it's very exciting to be in the midst of it all and be amongst it all.
All right, so you grew up in Australia, but why did you pick London to train?
For many reasons. Obviously, signing with Matchroom, signing with STN Sports, my management company. They're both based in London. Part of my deal with Matchroom is to also work doing comms with DAZN, so being there helps. And boxing, especially women's boxing, but boxing's ahead of the game in the UK.
Yeah, it is.
And if I wanted to give this a red hot crack and put everything into this and make my career the best I can, I knew I had to make that move, and it was an easy decision for me.
What's the scene like in Australia right now in terms of women's boxing?
Women's boxing and boxing in general is absolutely flying in Australia right now. We've got 2 women's world champions crowned just in the last month in Shanika Johnson and Ebony Bridges. So the talent's there. It's the depth probably that's lacking a little bit, but women's boxing is so new. It is, it's obviously on the rise, but it's a new sport, and we need to get more eyes on the sport, and we need to keep showing girls that they can box and they can fight if they want to. So, yeah, I think it's headed in the right direction.
What's wild is up until 1995, women could not fight in New York City.
Yeah.
One of the first sanctioned fights was in like the mid 90s. Until then, that's insane to me.
It's baffling, right?
It's baffling because 90s is pretty recent.
Yeah, I know. I was born in 95.
Well, everyone in this office is very, very young, but yeah, it's come so far, and I smirked a little bit when you brought up that you were comms. Are you enjoying that? And I am friends with Chris Lloyd. He is we talk. I haven't met him, but we talk on social media all the time, and of course, it must be great to be a commentator and broadcast, and it's also probably great to work with Chris and be immortalized as a meme. That's a great thing too.
No, I'm absolutely loving it. I've kind of always been interested in media and journalism and that kind of thing away from boxing, so to kind of mix the two together, my passion for boxing and my passion for that, no, it's been good, and it forces me to watch more boxing. It helps expand my knowledge and of other fighters and fighting styles, and seeing things from an outside perspective instead of always being the one in the ring. So no, I'm absolutely loving it. I love working with Chris. He makes my job very easy on the night. He's very easygoing. So yeah, the meme.
It's not as bad as it looked. It's just a simple moment. If you haven't seen it, it's like that meme of the guy at a club, like in the ear of the girl, just like telling her something ridiculously long, but it was just like a quick thing.
And her face is like, "Get me out of here."
Right.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I'm not shocked. I mean, I feel like Chris probably hears that a lot.
Oh, don't be like that. No, it must have just been like a split second moment. Like, he was not interrogating me.
Right. And then Boxing Twitter did its thing.
Boxing Twitter did its thing.
And I think it's finally died down now.
Well, yeah, but I've done probably 15 interviews today and it's been brought up at least 5 times. And I feel like this was months ago. I don't know how it's still being brought up.
Oh, it's too good. But going back to working, calling fights, do you feel like it's tough to criticize? Or feel like it's tough to be like a tough critic, given that you might be friends with that fighter or you also know what it takes to step into the ring?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you do need to kind of separate yourself from the person as a person and what kind of personal connections you might have to the fighters and look at it without bias. But I think that comes with experience and learning on the job. But no, I really enjoy it. I really like doing it, and I don't struggle to criticize, but I think you can be constructive in your criticism without being disrespectful as well. And I appreciate constructive criticism when I watch back my fights and I listen to the commentators. So I try to be as respectful as possible, but I'll be constructive.
Yeah, it's different too because it's not like any other sport. You don't play boxing, so you have this. At least when I call fights or when I'm talking about boxing, it's like there's a respect level that I have for anyone that steps foot in the ring. It's different than playing basketball. It's different than playing baseball. You are literally in a fight.
Yeah.
So you have to have that going in, but you also have to be willing to call a fight and call it fair, call it straight. Well, let's also get into your background. You've been at this for a while now. You started fighting when you were 12, correct? What made you get into boxing outside of being in a fighting family? How did you decide, like, this is something that I want to do?
So I started going to the gym. My oldest brother is a boxing coach. So we had a backyard boxing gym, like most boxing gyms in Australia. They're just in people's backyards. So we had one at my house. So I grew up running around the gym. And
your dad built it?
Yeah.
That's amazing. I know Sebastian Fundora has one in his backyard here in the States.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's like he has sparring partners that like live on the premises, and he's taken it to a whole nother level.
Yeah, that's pretty next level. Ours is probably a little bit more basic. But no, we have a full decked out gym, full size ring, everything in my backyard. So I grew up playing in there, running around in there, and obviously seeing lots of amateur boxers training in there under my brother. And yeah, when I was 12, I'd just finished primary school and was getting ready to start high school after the Christmas break. And I think it was probably more for like a confidence thing, a fitness thing. I saw there was a few cute boys around my age that were starting up. And that was really it. There wasn't I want to be a boxer straight away. But I started training with the boys, and there was a little group of us around the same time, all around 12 years old, around the same weight, and we were all learning at the same time. So I kind of progressed with them. We were doing all the partner work and sparring, and I was just as good as them, if not better. And they were obviously all starting to talk about getting their blue books, their amateur blue books, and getting ready for their first weigh-in. And I was like, well, I want to fight too. I want to do it too. If they're doing it, I can do it.
Yeah.
I was doing everything they were doing, so why not? And it kind of just progressed from there. But yeah, I think it was about 8 weeks after I stepped foot in the gym for the first time. Wow. I actually had my first fight.
8 weeks into just putting on a pair of gloves?
Yeah.
Do you remember it?
Vaguely. Yeah, I have flashbacks, but I clearly remember that first win and that feeling of my hand being raised at the end of the 3 1.5 minute rounds or whatever it was.
Oh, wow.
That felt like an eternity
when
I was in there, but little 45 kilo me. Getting that first win and that taste of success and that feeling of your training paying off, that was the first.
It's addicting, right?
Yeah, that was that moment for me that was like, okay, I like this.
So I've done post-fight interviews in the ring, and I always say this, that it's like the amount of confidence and the amount of like positive energy that is radiating off a fighter after they win a fight. You can feel it when I'm doing my post-fight interview, and you get like you just get so into it. It must be the best feeling when you've gotten your hand raised, you're with your team, all this, the media, the cutting weight, the everything, the sleepless nights. And for that moment, it has to feel amazing, right?
Yeah, it's such a natural high. It's a feeling that only fighters would understand, fully understand, because unless you've been there and done it, it's quite hard to understand the feeling. But there's nothing like it. It's a very amazing feeling.
But going back to starting off when you were 12? Were your parents into it at first? Were they not into it? What were their feelings?
Not really. Mum was alright. Dad was like really anti women's boxing, like most people in his generation were.
Yeah, they weren't exposed to it.
Yeah, and but I changed their minds pretty quickly.
How?
They loved watching me box. They loved seeing me
Was
win.
it the stick and move with the fact that you weren't getting hit? They were like, okay, this is good.
Yeah, I think it actually did have something to do with it. Like, they saw I was quite an evasive fighter. And they saw my natural ability and talent as well, and they saw how happy it made me. And I'm very lucky to have such supportive parents who are easily my biggest fans.
It must be tough for them to watch. I know I talked to a lot of parents, and they always used to show them on the HBO fights, but they show the girlfriend, they show the wife, they show the family, they show the kids, and it's like, oh, man, that's tough.
Yeah.
How do your parents, are they more excited, or are they nervous?
They're so proud that it's, like, embarrassing.
I would be the same way, and as I'm getting older.
In the lead up to the fight, like the last few days, I can't be around my mum.
Well, she's taking pictures?
She's so nervous.
Okay.
So nervous. And I can just, like, feel her nervous energy, and I'm like, I need to get away from you.
Did they make this trip?
Much. They're here.
They're here?
Yeah.
That's amazing. They must be so proud to watch you just navigate through your pro career. Is it everything you thought it would be, the first couple of fights?
Oh, it has exceeded my expectation. It's been a whirlwind few months, but it's been so amazing. Like, professional boxing, it wasn't ever really something I was super passionate about. My boxing goals and ambition was always around the Olympic Games, around winning medals for my country, representing my country on the big stage at amateur boxing tournaments. So it's been a very new journey for me, but I'm absolutely loving it. I have no regrets at all. It's been, yeah. You
talk about the Olympics. Can we touch on that? That's pretty exciting. I know the Olympic Games are huge for women's boxing because it's almost a feeder system. I think it's super important for women to get on the scene like that. What was the experience like? Was it everything you dreamed of? Was it, I know obviously it was a little disappointing. I know you want to head back. Talk to us about that Olympic experience.
I loved every second of my Olympic experience. It was obviously a very different Olympics with the COVID situation. The Olympics were postponed a year, so I actually didn't box for 18 months in the lead up to the Olympics, so there was like a little bit of a strange preparation for the Olympics, but I loved the village atmosphere. I loved being an Olympian. It was such an amazing feeling representing my country on that stage, and I would go back again in a heartbeat.
Well, you want to go back, right?
I do want to go back.
There's a new rule that allows you to be professional and also compete in the Olympics, so we can bet that you will be in Paris 2024?
That was 100% the plan when I turned professional. We're going to keep assessing the situation as it gets closer, but they have changed the qualifying process for the Olympics, which could see me having to not box as a professional for over 6 months, which it depends. It depends where my pro career is at. We're going to keep assessing it and decide what's going to be best for me. But I would absolutely love to be at the Olympic Games in 2024 and get that medal that I just missed out on.
I'm not a big math guy, but if you fight 3 fights every 18 weeks, by the time 2024, you could be like 30-0 at that point, and then you would be disqualified from competing in the Olympics.
Is there a limit? I don't even think they've got a limit on it anymore.
Honestly, I don't know the rule. I know that they've made some adjustments because of COVID and all that, but I think it's great. I mean, I would say probably under 8, I feel like would be maybe even less, maybe 6 to 8. I feel like at that point you're a pro.
Yeah. Like
you've adjusted to the pro ranks, you've grown into your body, and it depends on who you're fighting too. If you're fighting someone that's fresh right out of the Commonwealth Games or whatever, there's got to be somewhat of an advantage for you, no?
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like with women's boxing, you can kind of go between the amateurs and pros probably easier than the men can. 3 3-minute rounds to I'll probably be doing 8 2-minute rounds, maybe 10 2-minute rounds by then. The 2-minute rounds, it ups the pace, obviously. So there's a higher pace in the women's professional boxing. You don't have to slow things down as much as the men do, making that transition. So I feel like it's probably easier to go between the two, but we also did discuss not really dipping between the two too much. It'll be like we'll go back for the Olympics and that'll be it. But yeah, we'll keep assessing it. We'll see.
How many people have asked you your thoughts on the 2 or 3 minute round debate?
Yeah, I've been asked that a few times. I'm not really for or against either way. I've enjoyed doing the 2 minute rounds. It's different. I like the pace. It's cool.
I think it encourages action.
It does, and it makes women's boxing more exciting, especially while we don't have as much depth. I think as the skill and I guess what's the word?
Overall depth is
the depth,
right, the skill level, women, the talent pool.
The talent pool as that grows, I feel like you could see 3 minute rounds in women's boxing being quite exciting, but at the moment it makes women's boxing exciting. They're forced to go out there and fight for that 2 minutes every round. Right. But I think 3 minute round suits my style. I'm a patient fighter. Yeah. I like to sit back and assess the situation, and I've got a good engine, so I'd be happy with 3 minute rounds as well. So it doesn't really affect me either way. I
thought it was interesting that Amanda Serrano was pushing for the 3 minute rounds because I feel like it helps her too. She's more of a knockout puncher, where Katie is more of a volume type of puncher. But I've spoken to women fighters currently that are for it. I've spoken to women fighters that are against it. The ones that are against it say, listen, we're not getting paid extra, so why am I working extra? And I've also heard from television executives that say we are more likely to put on a women's fight if it is 20 minutes rather than 30 minutes. Yeah. Because not all these fighters have an exciting style like you. Not all these fighters have an exciting style like Amanda or Katie. You know, if they're a little bit longer, like we want women's fighters to be on these networks. So let's make it the most entertaining product it could possibly be.
I agree. That's like I said about the depth. While the depth isn't fully there in women's boxing, I think 2 minute rounds is better. It keeps it exciting. It shows the toughness and relentlessness of the women, and yeah, I don't see a problem with it being 2 minute rounds at all.
Okay, so how many more fights do you want to get in this year? You're ready about entail on your third fight. Yeah. What month are we in now? We're in April. How many more fights you want to get in over the course of this year? Looking at your manager right now.
We said 6-0 by the end of 2022, so at least 6.
That's a lot.
Maybe 7. I would fight every week if they'd let me.
How close were you to wanting to fight on the Canelo card next week? Is it a choice between this one and that one, or they were like, hey, you should fight on this card since it's a women's celebration?
I didn't really have a choice as such, but if I had the choice, it was this card. This is a historic night for women's boxing, but boxing in general, and it's a great privilege to be a part of it. I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
How do you see the fight playing out?
I'm a Katie Taylor fan. I've always been a Katie Taylor fan.
How does she win?
I think it's going to be a boxing masterclass by both girls. I think it's going to be a competitive fight, but I see Katie stealing it on points. Yeah,
I mean, I'm flipping back and forth. I'm looking at Amanda's volume. I'm a punch stat guy. Amanda throws 68 punches a round, and that's 2 minute rounds. So that's equivalent to over 101 punches a round if it was 3 minutes. And I also want to see her power, how it translates from featherweight. She's going from featherweight to lightweight. And over the course of that span, when she's jumped up, the power hasn't exactly translated. You know, everyone's giving Serrano the edge because they think she has the power edge, but she's not a career lightweight. Katie is a career lightweight. She knows this weight. She's fought at this weight. She's battle tested. But you just never know with Serrano if that power is going to... I think it's a perfect stylistic clash.
I agree. I think it's going to be a very competitive fight. And I think we're going to see amazing display of talent, of power, of skill from both girls. And it's going to be a pleasure to watch.
Do you think this is the right fight for this stage?
100%.
Yeah, I agree too. It's two very skilled fighters. They have high profiles. You got Jake Paul and Vi. Have you met Jake yet?
No.
Are you planning on it?
We've been in the same room a few times, but we haven't had a conversation.
Yeah, he's good. I think he's good for the sport.
I agree.
I get asked all the time. Literally everywhere I go, it's like, you're a boxing guy? What do you think of Jake Paul? What do you think of Jake Paul? Honestly, I'm still looking for something negative that he's bringing to the table, especially what he's done for Amanda with the purses. What he's done for to bring with the UFC fighter pay. Mostly what he's done with women's boxing is what I like. And I don't know if it's genuine or not, but You know who's benefiting from it? Women boxers. Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor.
Exactly. What's Jake getting from it, really? He's getting more eyes on the sport. He's fighting for boxers and fighters' rights to be paid what they deserve to be paid for what they're doing. They're putting their life on the line every time they get in the ring. We're putting our life on the line every time we get in the ring. So, no, I have nothing bad to say about Jake at all.
All right, let's get your top 5 pound for pound women fighters right now. Putting you on the spot.
Wow, you really are, aren't you?
No segue there. Just right into it.
Okay. Do we
Let's start with 5?
5?
Yeah, start with 5. There's so many to choose from.
Yeah, there is, and I don't want to accidentally miss anyone off.
Or you can start at 1. Maybe that'd be easier.
I think it might be easier that way.
Okay, go.
1 for me, it has to be equal.
Okay, 1A and a 1B.
Yeah. Katie Taylor and Claressa Shields.
Okay. Then I guess we'll go to, how does that go? We'll go right to 3 then.
Okay. Amanda Serrano.
Okay. 4.
Senesia.
She's very, very good. Okay.
Amazing. 5. Michaela Mayer.
It's a solid list.
It is.
And there's some missing off there too. That just shows you how deep it is. Like a Jessica McCaskill.
Yeah,
Savannah Marshall.
Savannah Marshall. There's so many.
Marlon
It's so hard to
Esparza.
just do a top 5 now, which is so good.
Yeah.
Like, how good is that for women's boxing?
I
then?
love that the Ring Magazine has a top 5 pound for pound now too.
So cool.
Yeah, you want to be on that one day, don't you?
That's the plan.
What is your dream fight? Is it out there right now?
Not really. It's who's got the belts when it's time for me to come and take them. That's all there is to it.
That's amazing. Thoughts on some of these upcoming fights? We got a big one on Saturday night, Stevenson-Valdez. We got Canelo coming up against Bivol. First off, who you think is going to win between Shakur and Oscar Valdez?
I think Shakur. He's going to be hard to beat.
Yeah.
And people are saying he's overrated, but I don't think he is.
Who are these people? I need to speak to them.
Boxing Twitter.
I think we can do a whole podcast on boxing
emoji.
Twitter. Yeah. The thing with Shakur is he's just so damn hard to hit.
Yeah.
And you can attest to that too. You know, you're a defensive type of fighter. He hasn't been outlanded in his last 43 rounds.
He's slick.
He's so slick, and I think in his last fight with Herring, he showed that he's willing to get closer now, stand and trade. He might not be the most powerful puncher, but he's very precise, and I think he showed that in his last fight. I'm probably going to roll with Stevenson in that one.
Hit and don't get hit.
That's the name of the game, right?
Name of the game.
Name of the game. That's how you keep your faculties. That's how you keep everything going. How about Canelo and Bivol? Oof, that is a tough one.
This is a big test for Canelo.
I agree.
Huge. But there is something about his mindset that separates him from everyone. And you just see it, how calm, confident he is. It doesn't matter who is getting in the ring with him. He has no fear.
Mm-hmm.
He completely believes in himself. He completely believes in his ability. And it's amazing to witness.
Did you get a chance to meet him?
Yeah.
What was that like?
I met him in San Diego at his press conference for this fight. Really cool. I was quite starstruck.
I think I saw that on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, he came over and gave you a big hug.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And he said that I didn't look like a fighter.
I mean, that's
nice.
a given. Yeah.
It was nice because it was Canelo.
Yeah, exactly. He could have said anything in that moment.
Yeah.
If he said anything to me, I'd be like...
No, but I don't see him losing. Just his mindset alone, but his skill set, everything else that goes with it, he's the best in the world.
Yeah, he's definitely number one right now, in my opinion.
The
and
king.
In the sport would be in bad shape without him right now. I think he's carrying it. But I do think this is his toughest fight since Golovkin because Bivol is big, he's active, he's got a great jab, and he has great defense too. Mm-hmm. I can see this kind of fight playing out like the Kovalev fight played out where he just couldn't get inside Canelo for the first half of the fight. But then Canelo can maybe break him down to the body. Yeah. One of the best body punchers. You're a good body puncher too. Wow, boxing world, I always say this on every week. I say the boxing world is buzzing. It could probably be my catchphrase. If I was going to make a T-shirt, it would say that. And I say it sometimes, and I don't really mean it because I just want to be positive, but I actually mean it right now. We're in the midst of a massive run, whether it's this fight coming up this weekend, it's what we saw this past month, what we still have ahead of us, Crawford and Spence, the heavyweight division, the women's boxing. I think it's a great time to be a boxing fan. And I think it's a great time to get into the sport where you're at right now, only 2-3 fights in.
I agree. I feel like this this time we're in right now is going to be an era that's going to be talked about in years and years, in decades. This is going to be an era that's talked about, so it's very exciting to be in the midst of it and be a part of it all.
Okay, so after this, we're going to head back into the city. You're going to get a slice of New York pizza. Can you, or should I not bring that up until after the fight?
2 days left. 2 days till the weigh-in.
Have you had the pizza here yet?
No.
Oh, you have to have it Saturday night.
I've had chicken and asparagus.
I've seen your Instagram stories. You're on weight. You're focused. That's important. I shouldn't even bring that up. That's a rookie mistake on my part, bringing up pizza like that.
Shake Shack's happening Saturday night. New York slice Sunday.
Maybe you mix them together.
You know what? They could both be on Saturday night. I'm not going to lie.
There we go. There we go. Skye Nicholson fights Saturday night on DAZN. Go check it out. I believe it's on the YouTube.
Matchroom Boxing YouTube as well.
Justin Shackle, who's here, who also works at John Boy, will be calling your fight alongside Chris Algieri, who will be here shortly. He is the other guest today. Chris Algieri is coming through in a little bit. Thank you so much for the time. Look forward to doing this. Keep it going. And, yeah, you're the new ambassador for not just women's boxing in general. So thanks for coming through.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
All right, Chris Algieri is here, former champion, current author, probably leaving out, current broadcaster, dietitian. I'm leaving out probably so many other jobs that you have right now. But what's going on, Chris? Welcome to John Boy Media Studios. What's the good word?
Hey, man, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure. Wearing a lot of hats these days. You know, they got a nickname for me around the promotion circuit. All the checks.
As long as the check's clear, that's good.
That's right.
You're collecting checks while you were fighting. Now you're collecting checks in your post-fight career. I don't know.
No, I'm going to fight again.
You're going to fight again?
Oh, yeah.
Here, you want to fight in New York? Where do you want to end?
I mean, of course, I always love fighting in New York, but it's not really up to me these days.
Yeah. But you're also now a two-time author. Fighter's Kitchen, of course, was a phenomenal book, and now we got this right here. So You Want to Be a Fighter, Profiles in Fortitude, Resilience, Acceptance in and outside the ring. We got a lot of interviews with some of the biggest names in the sport. Tell us a little bit about this book, man. Yeah,
actually, the inception of the book idea came from a social media post, actually. Right. I posted a shot of my beat-up face after a fight, and that's the photo right there. And
I remember that post.
It went viral. It was spread around quite a bit amongst fighters and just people. I don't know. It touched people in a certain way. So that's kind of where the idea came from. It's like, yeah, man, everybody sees fight night, right? You see your hand get raised. You see the belt. You see the fancy car. You see the hot lady. You see the money, whatever. But you don't see the hospital visits afterwards. You don't see, the times when you couldn't pay rent, when you got evicted. And every one of us, every champion has those stories. So this book is kind of just a compilation of that.
Yeah, what fighters are featured in the book?
So right off the bat, we've got Buddy McGirt, which is one of my favorite ones. Yeah. He was a great one.
People forget that he was a world-class fighter.
Two-time, two-division world champion.
You think of him as, Gotti's trainer. You think of him as trainer of today, but that guy in his own right was one hell of a fighter.
Oh, I mean, incredible. I mean, the definition of a boxer-puncher. He could box, he could punch, he had speed. Anyone who has not checked out Buddy McGirt's fight career should definitely look him up. I mean, incredible stuff. But Sean Porter is in there, Tim Bradley, Freddie Roach is in there, so I have some trainers as well. Kelly Pavlik, Paulie Malignaggi, Jamel Herring, some of the ladies. We have Heather Hardy, and then actually there's some UFC and MMA fighters as well. Jessica Penne, Ungla Ensang from One Fighting Championship, and I mean, I have personal contacts with all these fighters, so it was almost just like a text, like, hey, I got this idea for a book. Like, what do you think? And they were all so gracious with their time and what they were willing to share. It was a lot of fun. Ton of work, but fun.
Yeah, of course. Every book is. What was the common theme from all these fighters?
So, I mean, sacrifice, obsession, the idea that even though this hurts, even though it is going to be the hardest thing you've ever done, it's worth it. And everyone has that story. Everyone has those, it's so funny how many of them have the same story of them going to the gym as kids, right, getting beat up, and then coming back for more. It's most kids will go, they get beat up, like, I'm not going back there. I just got my ass kicked. No, every one of them was like, I need to get that kid back. There was at least 4 different profiles where that was a story.
That's usually the case, right? It's the ones that come back.
Yeah.
It's not the ones, obviously the ones that go home, they don't become future champions. It's the ones that, that I always say that these fighters are a little sick in the head sometimes. You guys are a little crazy to step foot in a ring and do that. It's the ones at a young age that decided, you know what, I'm going to go back. I'm going to step in the ring again and try to catch him or her. And that's awesome, man. This book is going to, what is this, the fight after Tommy Coyle?
Yeah, so it's funny. People are like, oh man, like you must have lost. I'm like, no, Mike, you ever broke your nose? I mean, your eyes swell. So I broke my nose in the first round, and it was a tough fight, but it wasn't that tough of a fight. I've been in much more like a war type fights, but yeah, I mean, break your nose, your eyes swell up.
And that was on the main card of AJ Ruiz.
Yes, yeah, the upset.
That was one hell of a night. But what is the process? Are you enjoying the process of writing? I know you're a damn good broadcaster, but how about putting your words, your thoughts into words?
Yeah, honestly, this is exactly where I expected to be. When I was in college, I decided that I was going to be a writer. I was pretty good at it all throughout, high school, grade school, college. I enjoyed it. I liked the process. I had this kind of romanticized idea of being that writer who's half drunk in a cabin and just works and hammers out books
behind, most of them do.
Behind the deadline. That's a future idea that I have.
Okay, but now putting into words and talking to fighters, it has to feel a little bit easier, right? Because you feel like when I ask fighters questions, when I go through interviews, I never stepped into the ring. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you did probably makes it a little bit easier, right?
Yeah, I mean...
You interviewed the fighters, right?
Yes, yeah. So interviewed, recorded them all, transcribed their words, and then just kind of constructed and pulled out the best pieces. I mean, this book could have been 1,000 pages, with all the information that these fighters were so gracious to share. But... yeah, I mean, it was just kind of just distilling down the points where people are going to read this and be like, I can use that in my everyday life. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where I can really be helpful with this kind of book because, like you said, I'm a fighter. I can talk to these people a different way and kind of carry over those lessons from boxing into real life.
Right. And it comes out June 21st. That is a perfect time for a book to come out. Summer reading. So go check it out. Here we go right here. So you want to be a fighter. I like this. Behind the scenes stuff, giving fans like an understanding of what goes on behind the scenes more than just what you see on fight night or what you see in an interview. There's so much that goes into it. So that's awesome, man. You're an author now. That's wild.
Exactly. Thank you. I'm very proud of it. Like I said, I'm wearing a lot of hats these days, but this is a nice feather in the cap.
Making us Long Islanders proud. Me and Chris both come from Long Island. Not a lot of our friends are authors. Let's just say that.
Yeah, fair point. There's a bunch of Long Islanders in there, though. I got Buddy McGirt. I got Jamel Herring.
Love Jamel.
I wasn't able to get with Joe Smith. He's been super busy, obviously, his last couple fights, but maybe in the sequel.
There you go. All right, so let's get into the fights. You'll be on the call for Taylor and Serrano, part of the Matchroom before the Bell show. This is a big one. You've been around boxing a long time. You've been around, whether it's kickboxing, whether it's boxing. Just to go back in time here, what was women's boxing perceived at when you first got into the sport?
So, kickboxing, I think, was a little different. I think we had a lot more ladies. So I wasn't that unaccustomed to seeing female fighters. But boxing, I mean, it was very few and far between. I really remember Heather Hardy being the first, kind of breakout female, especially in the local boxing circuit. And it's funny because she was a kickboxer too. So we were on a lot of the same cards growing up. And then, and then I transitioned to boxing. She did too. And then there was a lot of hype and talk around Heather's career. Oh, Heather's in the book too, by the way. And now it's blown up, especially the last couple of years. It's on a different stratosphere at this point.
Yeah, I was just had Skye Nicholson here, and she's kind of reaping the benefits of where it's at right now. But she's also very appreciative. She understands all the women that came before her. But there's no doubt. I mean, now we're gonna get a raucous crowd at MSG. We're gonna have a sold out crowd. It's gonna be a celebration. That's what I'm looking at it as. I was at the one of the events today, and it felt different. It had like a different vibe around it. It wasn't just like your regular old title fight, which are still fun, but it felt more of like a celebration. It felt more, a positive vibe around it, and I think that will be the case on Saturday night. And I also think it's going to be a damn good fight.
That's a great way to put it, a celebration, because it really is kind of the coming out party for the ladies. They're the main event at MSG. That's fucking badass.
Yeah.
That's really cool. It's really come a long way. And yes, it's a fantastic matchup and a great fight.
Right. It's the first females to headline a fight at Madison Square Garden, and you know the history of Madison Square Garden. We're talking over 100 years. Skye Nicolson will be the first female from Australia to fight at Madison Square Garden. We got Franchon Cruz-Dezern is also on the card as well.
Nice, I like her.
There's going to be a lot of women fighters or young fighters that are looking up the next generation, and they're seeing, wow, this could be it, and we need that. Like, the UFC, the women and the men are almost on the same level.
At this point, yeah.
They have main events. It's new for boxing, but it's not new for UFC. So why are you neglecting an entire gender where we can use that in boxing?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And like you said, I think that the young people today, whether they're fighters or not, are able to see this and see women are headlining cards. They're on the poster. They're on the big screen. I think it's great for young ladies of every sport, to see this kind of exposure.
Now, let's get to the fight. How do you think it's going to play out? To me, I'm looking at the pace. Serrano's a beast. She throws 67 punches around, and keep in mind those are 2-minute rounds, so it's almost like 100 punch. If you converted it to 3 minutes, she's got the power. Don't know how the power is going to translate to 135. She's not a 135 pounder. Katie Taylor is. She's fought numerous times there. Taylor a little more economical, a little more fights that amateur style, but has figured out ways to win in the pros. Obviously, she's undisputed. Stylistically, I think this will be a great fight, and what it comes down to, I think at least, will be which lady fights their fight, imposes their will. Is it going to be the volume of Serrano, or is it going to be the economical pace of Katie Taylor?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. You nailed it right on the head. I think the weight issue you mentioned is going to be a big part of it. I don't think a lot of people realize that because she's pretty tall. She's as tall. I think she's exactly the same height as Katie. So she looks like she's the same size, but she's not truly a 135 pounder. I remember when she fought Heather Hardy, and Heather looked much bigger than Amanda did at 126. So that was 9 pounds ago. So I think the size of Katie Taylor, the fact that she's been at the weight class for in the majority of her career, can definitely play a factor.
Yeah, with Taylor, a little long in the tooth. 35 years old, had a long amateur career, 2 Olympic golds. Some of her fights recently have been tough.
Yeah.
They almost look like carbon copies. Every round is tough. They're grueling fights. She's getting close decisions. They're getting closer and closer. Do you think that's also going to play a factor too? The fact that Serrano's no spring chicken too. She's 32 years old, in obviously boxing terms. But Taylor has the experience, but she also is been through some tough fights.
Yeah, and you mentioned that Serrano is a little older too, but she's got a lot of knockouts. Yeah. She hasn't been the distance a lot, so that's a difference. The amount of rounds, compared, the kinds of tough fights they've been in, it's different. So I think Amanda would definitely be the fresher of the two. But even though you alluded to Katie Taylor recently edging out rounds, she's used to doing that. Win by an inch or win by a mile, you still win. And that's a big thing. Katie Taylor knows how to dig deep. She knows how to be in fights where it's tough. I'm not so sure Amanda's that used to that lately in her career.
You're right, with the power. She's got 31 knockouts or something like that. She's going for the record.
She's got some serious power. And I've talked to some people who sparred with her, and they're like, yeah, she really can hit.
Yeah, but didn't see that power in her last fight. She fought at 135 her last fight against Miriam Gutierrez. Her face was destroyed. I mean, it kind of looked like yours after the Tommy Cole fight. Miriam Gutierrez's face. Share a common opponent in Gutierrez, Taylor, and Serrano. Both ladies took her distance. So Gutierrez is tough, but I know that Serrano wanted to fight at 135 to get used to it. But she did win the fight going away, but she wasn't able to stop her, wasn't able to drop her. So it's a valid question to see if Serrano's power translates to 135.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and at the end of the day, it's all about whether Katie can take it or not. Katie's solid. She's never really been hurt in a fight. So, they always talk about people's power, but it's like, yeah, but you got to look at the person across from them. What's their chin like? What's their body size? How do they take the shots? So Katie's chin and size could potentially nullify the power.
Yeah, and then of course with Taylor over her last 3, she's being outthrown, she's being outlanded, she's being outjabbed, but her accuracy is still there. That's going to be a key point of this too. Is if you're going to throw 37 punches around, you're probably going to be accurate because you're choosing and you're selecting your punches.
Yeah, I mean if she can make Serrano fight her pace, I think she'll run away with it.
Yeah, that's the number one thing, too, is the pace. Like
Yeah.
we said, it's like who's going to – like I don't expect Serrano. She does this. She comes out quick, and she'll come out and she'll throw 70 punches in the first round, 70 punches in the second round, and kind of blend in, maybe get down into the 40s or 50s and find that rhythm. But, you know, I want to see how Taylor can react to that if Serrano comes out with that whirlwind type of pace.
Yeah, you know, Taylor has that European in and out movement really well, but she's not a big mover. She's not going to be moving around the ring so much, and really, they're going to have to meet in the center of the ring. But if Taylor can assert herself, assert her pace, and land her accurate punches, I think she'll be able to really she could potentially make the fight pretty easy.
Yeah, it's going to be a great night. Madison Square Garden. Chris will be on the call beforehand. Pretty good card. You know, Franchon Cruz-Dezurn versus Ellen Siderus. That is also an undisputed fight. I believe at 154. You got Liam Smith going up against Jesse Vargas. That's like a crossroads type of fight. Two vets. Ammo Williams is on the card.
I like Ammo, man.
He's tough.
He's talented.
And he's going up against a guy that we know here, a New Yorker in Chordell Booker.
Oh, is he? That's right.
That's a good fight.
That's a very good fight.
It's a big step up for Ammo.
Cordell's good, man. He's a southpaw. He's got a lot of experience. You know, I've seen him in the gym. He's a hard worker. He's one of those guys who he lives in the gym. So even though he doesn't have that many fights under his belt, he has a lot of experience. I think that's a hell of a fight.
That's a good one. That's on the early portion of the night. You'll be calling it with our boy Justin Shackle. So that's what's going on at MSG this weekend. That's where we are. We're a few steps away from the Garden. Then over in Vegas, huge fight, and they're not going to go up against each other. We figured out a way. Finally, boxing fans can rejoice because the Serrano-Taylor main event is going to end. And then we're going to flip over to ESPN, regular ESPN, and we're going to watch Shakur Stevenson and Oscar Valdez. It's a huge fight, Chris. This is unification at 130. We've got the Ring Magazine belt is also on the line here. You got Stevenson, who I think is on a rocket ship to the top. I think this kid is going to be pound for pound top 3 in the next 12, 18 months, if not even sooner. And this is his toughest opponent. Oscar Valdez can crack. He's shown now with working with the Canellis team and Eddie Reynoso, they're trying to rein him in a little bit. They want him on the brawl as much as he once did, but I think that's how he could win this fight, is by pushing the pace and trying to actually land on Stevenson, who it's almost impossible to land on this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I was in the room I was in the building for when Stevenson beat Jamel Herring, and I mean, what an incredible performance. I mean, completely took the champion apart. And, you know, Jamel he's one of those guys. He's in great shape. He always pushes the pace. He gives everybody problems. He had nothing for Shakur. Shakur is on a different level. His style is such a nightmare to deal with. And I think you're absolutely right. I think the only way Valdez wins this fight is he has to push the pace. He's got to make it a dogfight. Because if he stands on the outside and tries to box Stevenson, he's going to get picked apart.
Right. And I think Valdez is in trouble in this fight because he's in between styles. I mean, he's been with Reynoso for about 5 fights now, and he understands, there's raining down. He's throwing 40 punches around. His defensive numbers have, improved so much. But like you said, he's stuck in a spot where if he pushes the tempo, he's going to get picked apart.
Yeah.
If he sits back, he's probably going to get picked apart too. So, Valdez got to land one of those patented right hooks that he landed on Burchelt. But like I just said, left hook that landed on Burchelt. But Stevenson has shown that he cannot be hit. These numbers are absurd, Chris. He hasn't been outlanded in his last 43 rounds. Shakur Stevenson. He has 103 career rounds. He's only outlanded once, the 7th round against Joet Gonzalez.
Wow.
And he's fought some pretty good names.
Oh, absolutely.
Nakathila?
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, you saw what he did to Burchell.
Yep.
He's fought Chris Diaz.
Yeah, Chris Diaz is a tough kid, man.
He's fought Jamel Herring, who you just said is a pro's pro,
mm-hmm.
and he's just come out on top round after round. And I spoke to him earlier this week, and he's ready. I sense a guy that is more mature now than Stevenson. Had some issues back, getting in trouble here and there, but he's way more focused now, and you can feel like he is, like I said, on a rocket ship towards the top now. This will be, if he wins, will be unified. At 130, he was already a champion. At 126, he's a big guy too.
He is a big guy. Yeah,
he can get to 140, 147.
Yep. He'll be 35 in no time. He'll be 40 eventually. I could easily see him at welterweight at some point.
Right. He's got those sustainable skills. I say, like the defense. That's like, I'm not in love with pound for pound lists.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. What's the criteria? Like, what do we?
Yeah.
It's like a popularity contest. Is it like how you're putting names in there? that you think should be in there because you don't want to get ridiculed. But if you take a look at what I think the pound for pound list is jumping weights, skills, eye test, accomplishments, accolades. I mean, he's only 23 years old, and now he's about to be a 2-division unified champion if he wins this fight on Saturday.
Yeah, this is a big step, but I personally think it's an inevitable one. I don't see a path for Oscar Valdez to upset that star. I don't see it.
Right, Canelo's talking like we should give him a little bit more of a shot. But here's the thing: you can't bring Canelo into the ring with you on Saturday night.
Listen, he's got a shot. He's a great fighter. Oscar Valdez is awesome. I'm a huge fan. I mean, he could really fight. I've called a lot of his fights. It's just a style nightmare for him. This matchup is tough.
Yeah, were you there, Colin, in his last fight against Conceição?
Yes.
That was a whole mess too with the T and he didn't come out looking good. I didn't expect him to come out looking good. There was a lot of pressure on him in that fight. That's what I want to see too. Is what version of Valdez are we going to see? Are we going to see the version we saw against Burchelt, which I thought was one of the best performances of 2021?
That was a surprise for me too. I thought Burchelt was going to get him.
Yeah, or are we going to see what we saw against Conceição, where maybe that was more of a mental thing. Maybe that was more of a guy that was tight because of all the criticism coming his way. But Conceição
can fight.
Yes, he can.
He can fight.
And he showed, he has a lot of the same skills that Stevenson has.
Yes.
A good jab, movement, and that can give Valdez problems.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, which Valdez is it going to be? I mean, it's tough. Like you said, his last couple of performances, they've been so up and down.
Right.
The Burchelt fight was like crazy. Like, wow, he was incredible. But how much of that was Burchelt, too? Now that we're seeing Burchelt, a year later, and, I mean, I called his last fight with Nakatila. He could barely walk to the ring. He just doesn't have his coordination anymore. How much of that was a factor in the Valdez fight? Because his legs didn't look good in that fight either, even before he really got it cracked.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Saturday night. What do you think of this month that we're in? This is one of the best boxing months I can remember in a long time, between Triple G Murata starting it off, what we saw with Lubin and Fundora, what we saw with Spence and Ugas last week, Tyson Fury. This weekend we got one of the biggest women's fights. Then we got Stevenson-Valdez. Next week we got Canelo. It's like boxing fans, we're not used to this. We're not used to like back-to-back weeks where it's just like getting everything we want.
I always feel like May and June are always really big boxing months, and it's just we're getting built into it with April. It's cool. Yeah. It's like April's big, May's gonna be big, June's always big. So, and then we kind of have that little bit of lull, that July, August, and then we pick back up in the fall.
You love June because that's when you won your first world title.
Yes, June 14th,
June 14th. I was there, man. That was the day before Father's Day. I remember being there at Barclays Center. Ruslan Provodnikov. No one was giving you a shot in that fight, man.
No, not at all. I think I opened at as a 15-1 underdog.
Damn.
Initially, yeah.
You put any money on yourself?
No, but
I got brother bet on you?
I got some friends who paid their mortgages off.
What a night that was, man. Talk about you want to be a fighter. You could write a whole, chapter on that fight.
Actually, the first chapter is the first round. Just the first round. It's not the fight. Round. It's just the first round.
I remember that, man. Is that when the eye closed up in the first round?
Yeah, it was the first 90 seconds.
What are you thinking in that moment? Like, oh, shit.
Shit was one. Also, wow, it's true. This guy really does hit that hard. I mean, I've never been hit by anything the way that he hit me. The guy was made out of iron.
Right, and you fought Errol Spence.
Yeah, exactly.
You fought Amir Khan.
Manny Pacquiao.
You fought Manny... I'm getting there. You fought Manny Pacquiao. You fought Conor Benn. Like, these guys crack. And you're saying that Ruslan Provodnikov's the hardest hitter.
100%.
Wow.
He literally punched a hole in my face. Like, I thought literally he caved in my skull. I mean, he kind of did. He broke my orbital. But, like, yeah, I mean, I didn't know people could hit that hard.
Wow. And then... at that point, it's more, obviously it's physical, but it's also mental too, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I need to adapt. This is my moment. I need to figure out a way to win this fight, which is just absurd. That's why it's unlike any other sport in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that night, there was no way for me to lose that fight that night. I had that mindset, like you said. The worst thing that could ever happen to me happened in the first round. I went down twice, and I broke my orbital. In a fight I was supposed to lose anyway.
Well, you took that knee, which I think was brilliant.
Oh, I would have got stopped 100%.
I don't know why more fighters don't do that.
Ego's dumb. You gotta understand the sport. You gotta understand the game. Having the wherewithal to understand, like, if you're hurt. And I think, honestly, that came from my kickboxing. I had been hurt before.
Right.
I had been knocked down before. I've been hurt badly before. So I knew what my body felt like, and I knew it comes back. So I just needed to give myself a little bit of time and let it come back.
Especially taking a knee early, because if it's later on in the fight and you kind of know where you're at, or at least you have an idea of what the scorecards are, early you have 11 more rounds now to make up for that 10-8 or 10-7 round it was.
Right. The story wasn't written yet, so it was I had the opportunity.
Yeah. How about Errol Spence? What makes him so great? You shared a ring with him, and he's about to fight Terrence Crawford.
First of all, I was super impressed with Ugas. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Ugas is a hell of a fighter and a difficult guy to look good against. I thought that he was going to give Spence a little more trouble. He didn't. Spence was a machine that night. He's a machine every night. But
more this fight, he was on a pace that was absurd. He threw 78 punches around.
Dude, his pace, when you were asking what about him, it's his pace. He's right there right in front of you. He's very economical with his footwork. He's able to. His defense is better than he gets credit for because he does have a little bit of push and pull. He doesn't get hit with a lot of clean punches, but he's willing to get hit to hit you because he's got that power.
Yeah, and sharing a ring with him, he hits. He hits hard, and back then he was very much in his prime. But we're seeing I thought coming into that fight with Ugas, I was like, oh wow, when he fought Danny Garcia, he slowed down a little bit. He was a little more economical. Is that what we're going to see now? Is he not going to be that pressure fighter? But it turned out he was like 40% against Danny Garcia, and he still decisioned him with ease.
Yeah,
him versus Crawford is going to be something. Who do you like in that one?
I always said Spence.
Yeah.
But I'm like on the fence now.
So am I.
It's moved so much.
It's too early to figure out. I just think Crawford has maybe like the intangible that you can't really measure.
Yeah, he's got some kind of unknown that could be enough to win, but I don't know. I just on paper, I'd lean towards Spence, because of who he's been in with and what he's done. Also just his physical size and strength, but like you said, Crawford has that intangible thing. He I don't know. He's able to find things out with guys. What he did to Sean Porter. Yeah. My God.
Right.
I said that before the fight. I'm like, hey, Sean gives everybody a tough fight. And he did give Crawford a tough fight, don't get me wrong. But for him to get stopped.
Down twice, never, that was never really happened to Porter. Never stopped before. And
yeah, he's had flash knockdowns, but not hurt like that.
Right. That's a great fight. Hopefully we get that. And what we saw last weekend with Tyson Fury, first of all, he's not retiring. Let's just stop.
No, I know. Stop, please. He's got $100 million fight waiting.
When Eddie Hearn said his biggest fights haven't even happened yet, I was like, wait a second. That really makes a lot of sense because a fight with Usyk, a fight with Joshua, it's at least 80 to 100 million because it's all 4 belts, going to be in Saudi Arabia probably. That's it. If he walks away from that, then, I'd be shocked.
He's a little crazy.
A little or a lot?
He is a little crazy. So you never really know with Tyson Fury, but God, man, honestly, I'm going to say something bold. He will probably beat every heavyweight in history.
I talked about that last week, and that's the case that you can make. Where does he rank all time? I think that's almost impossible.
Yeah, no.
Because what are we doing? Because guys that watched Joe Louis, guys that watched the Ali era, guys that watched the 80s era, guys that watched the 90s are going to ride with their guys.
Yeah, but you can't. This guy's 270 pounds. Like, what do you...
6'9".
6'9".
84-inch reach. But that's the thing. You would probably know this better than I would, studying, medicine, studying, food and studying, being a dietitian and getting into all that. Humans are just bigger now.
Yeah, we're different. Absolutely.
Muhammad Ali's 6'2".
Yeah. And he was, 210 pounds.
Yeah.
We're different sized humans now. There was no LeBron James back in the 60s.
No. If you imagine he showed up in the 60s, you'd be like, oof, who the heck is this guy?
Well, that's what would happen if Tyson Fury showed up in the 40s. Yeah. I know we're so nostalgic about these guys because they're our heroes and they're legends, but realistically, you got a guy who's 6'9", doesn't get tired, and can punch.
Right, and he's got great defense too.
Yes, great defense.
He showed that he didn't even come out of first gear against Dillian White. That was an easy fight for him. He made it look easy. Dillian White is a good fighter.
Very good fighter. And
he was just disarmed. By the third or fourth round, he's getting into the dirty tactics, trying to elbow, trying to find his way in. It's tough. I think it's just what boxing fans do. We immediately go from the fight to, this, where does he stand all time? And, talking about him as the greatest British boxer of all time, it's between him and Lennox Lewis. But there's still work to be done. That's the thing with Fury. There's still, ahead of him is still the ultimate prize of being a 4-belt champion in this era at least.
that's a fantasy matchup that I've thought about, Lennox Lewis and Tyson Fury, because I think Lennox has the size to make that a real contest.
And the power.
And the skill set. Yeah, that's a dream fight right there.
The only thing with Lennox is I wouldn't say he's chinny, but he's susceptible to the big punch.
Like he would get hit clean.
Right.
With the heavyweights, chinny's not really a thing because everybody can all knock each other out.
Right.
It's who gets hit.
And then Fury just has the most ridiculous recovery I've ever seen of a fighter.
Like the Undertaker, literally.
Yeah, like even in that third fight with Wilder, I was like, oh, he just got cracked hard on the top of the head.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not in the best of shape, by his own admittance. He didn't have a long camp. Looked different for the third Fury fight from what we saw in the White fight. This White fight, he was in great shape.
Yep.
But he was still managed to get up from a Wilder shot. I think he was knocked down 4 times in total against Wilder in the 3 fights. So that's another intangible too for Fury.
He's something else. I like the guy more and more. I mean, he's and he puts on great. He performs too.
That's what I mean. I'm not ready to say goodbye. That's what I said on Monday show. I was like, I'm not ready to say goodbye. I want to see what more wrinkles he has. He's the ring walks. Some of it's a little over the top, like a Tyson Fury fight week can kind of get to you. But if you can kind of like just quiet that whole, like put it to the side, like the things he says, some could be off-putting sometimes. But as for the whole show, Tyson Fury's show, what you're getting, and now he's knocking guys out, giving you everything you wanted. Look at that fight. It was like couldn't script it any better.
No, it was great. It was great. And yeah, I mean, I've called his fights before. Even in the fighter meetings. He's just got this energy to him. And that's one thing that worries me about him, and maybe him retiring isn't that crazy to think about. His pace, his lifestyle, the way that he exudes energy, it's untenable. Like, it's just like he's just constantly out there. That's exhausting. So when a guy like that's like, I'm going to retire because it's just, he gives so much of himself to everything.
Right.
Not even just the training, just the selling the fight week. The energy that man exudes, it's wild. That's
a good point. That's the stuff that you're a fan, you don't think about. That goes back to the book. It's like you don't know how much energy goes into a fight week, or not even a fight week, just your career.
Yeah.
When you're at that level, you're getting pulled in a million different directions. So I can understand why he's like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Especially after the fight is over, I am done.
Dude, fight weeks are hard. They're really hard. They pull the life out of you. They really do. So,
And you've been through a Pacquiao fight week where it's just like nonstop.
Pacquiao fight week was 3 months long.
Yeah, they don't do that anymore.
No.
They don't do these world tours anymore. You were like, with the Giants, you were in San Francisco. You were
batting practice with the Giants. We went to Shanghai, San Francisco, New York City. I mean, L.A. We were at Las Vegas, everywhere.
They just don't do that anymore.
I mean, I understand. Everything's more digital now. Everything's a lot more... there's a lot more access without actually having to go there. But I'm happy that I got to be involved with one of the last big major press tours there ever was.
That was something. What a career, and it's not over yet. And now you're transitioning into being an author, doing a lot, wearing a lot of different hats, Chris. You're a great broadcaster.
Thank you.
I'm entrenched in boxing Twitter, which is, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. It's a terrible, terrible place. But one thing is for sure is people like your calls on fights.
Yeah, I'm getting worried. Like, maybe I'm doing something wrong, because if Twitter is on your side almost all the time, something's up.
No, you just call the fight. Like, some people just want to hear a succinct statement about what they're seeing in the ring.
Yeah, and that's my mindset. Thank you for saying that and pointing that out, because I'm just trying to give my perspective, which obviously is from the expert analyst position. I've been there. I see things a certain way, and I want to be able to make it so people watching it at home who maybe aren't entrenched in boxing like you are can understand what I'm saying and what they're seeing. And next time they've actually learned something, and
right.
I'm trying to create better fans.
There you go.
People who know the sport better. It's only going to help the sport on a whole.
All right. Here's the book right here. So you want to be a fighter, profiles in fortitude, resilience, acceptance, inside and out of the ring. It's going to be available everywhere. June 21st. Look at your predictions this weekend. Who you got? Taylor-Serrano and Valdez Stevenson. Put you on the spot.
I'm going to go Taylor, majority decision.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's a big one. She's a dog too. She's an underdog. And then I got Shakur by unanimous.
Okay, there it is. Chris Algieri, appreciate the time. Let's do this again soon. It's good to see you back where you belong, New York City, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, brother. Always a pleasure.